Let's talk a little bit more about some of the later years of your life. Where did you meet Lynne, your current wife?
I met Lynne in Walnut Creek. She was a co-leader of an encounter group that was affiliated in some way with the Unitarian Church in Walnut Creek. And it just so happened I was in her group that she was collating. Also in that group was Vance Montgomery. It's kind of an interesting thing. We knew Vance before then, but I didn't know he was going to be in the same group that I was in.
Vance was a character, all right.
Yes, he sure was. Probably still is. I don't think he's changed much if he's still around.
So when you introduced Lynne to your parents, did they like her instantly, or did they have any problems with her not being Jewish, or?
Nah, they did. Well, they didn't have any trouble with her not being Jewish. Lynne met my mother at a different time than she met my father. What happened was my father had some surgery, and I told Lynne that I was going to go down and visit him, and she said, that she'd come along. So my father was knocked out. He was still under the influence of drugs, and my mother was there, and she met her that was the first time she met, and I think my mother instantly liked her, and then after my father met her, I think he realized that she was a goddess.
Between the two of you, there were 6 kids. Are you
Correct.
Absolutely nuts?
Well, when we met, we already had the 6 kids, so there was nothing we could do about it at that point. There wasn't much of a market for them, you know what I mean? There was, part of it was that, both of us being parents, that was helpful. I think it would be difficult for me to hook up with a woman that never had any children, having 4 of my own. That would be a heavy load for somebody to take over, I think.
Well, looks like you guys have put up with each other pretty well. What do you think has been the key to your successful relationship?
Well, I think we both feel that, I know that Lynne's my mate for life, and I think she feels the same way. We have a lot of the same values. There's a lot of interesting things. Her father worked at a munitions plant during World War II, and so did mine. That's a peculiar thing. And our parents were probably just as affected by the Depression as mine were. They were the same era, same social class, and all that kind of stuff. Even though they lived in different parts of the country, and I think we laugh a lot. I think that the reality is that she makes every day of my life better. And I enjoy being with her. I don't, when we first met, she, of course, was in the process of getting a divorce. And she used to tell me that one of the things that used to drive her ex-husband crazy was that she changed her mind a lot. I thought it was interesting. And I didn't care whether she changed her mind a lot. I can see how that would drive some people crazy, but it didn't bother me any. And I think, people, you got to be lucky to end up with somebody that you stick with for a long time. I think also we don't have any demand or requirement that we do everything together. I mean, she's got interests that she pursues that I have no interest in particularly. We don't have to do everything together. You know, this summer I'm going to go on my hike again in Yosemite. It's not something that she would do, and she doesn't, you know, she's not upset that I'm going. As a matter of fact, just the opposite. She thinks it's good for me to go. It's probably good for her to have me go, too.
So you met in, I believe, about 1972. Why did it take almost 30 years before you got married?
Actually met her in 71, and we started going out together in February of 72. It had something to do with the era, you know. Wasn't really all that terribly important to get married.
Do you think that the fact that your first marriages for both of you went so well, that had any effect on that?
Gee, I don't know. I think that certainly initially, you know, the idea of getting married immediately or within a couple of years after a divorce probably wasn't high on our agenda. In fact, Lynne told me we had courted. I didn't know that for 10 years before we even started living together. So, then I think we both had concerns about living together. Of course, having 6 children was a little bit of a problem. I think you were all a little bit jealous of our respective times with you, and I felt that living separately would probably be beneficial to all of you. And I think it has. I think you guys are friendly with each other and feel good about each other, and I think in part that you weren't crowded in together that much.
You were married in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Oaxaca.
Yeah. Oaxaca.
How did that come about? I believe that there was some involvement with Grandma Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Decision.
Well, after my father died, as you know, Grandma moved to Davis, and so I used to go up there at least, certainly once a week, to have dinner with her, usually midweek. And it was not uncommon for Barbara and Tom to be there also. And 4 of us would go out to dinner, sometimes just my mom and I, it just depended. So one night I showed up and Barbara and Tom were there, and we went out to dinner, and then after dinner we go back to my mom's place, and my mom said, I've got something that I'd like to have you give to Lynne. And I said, okay. She pulled out her mother's engagement ring. And she said, I want you to give this to Lynne, but you've got to get engaged. So it's about an hour and a half drive. Well, yeah, about an hour and a half drive from Davis to Oakland. And so when I got home, Lynne was still up, and she was watching the tube, and I asked her if she wanted to get engaged, and she said yes. No, she said sure. So then the next day she's, was getting a little pushy about it. She said, well, most people get engaged to get married. Of course, my mother didn't say that. She just said engaged. So anyway, so we, I don't know when that happened, but we had planned to, I think it was in the fall sometime, maybe October or something like that. And we had made plans with friends to go to Oaxaca. 6 of us were going to go together. And so we thought that if we could get married in Mexico, that would be a fun thing to do. So we contacted the place that we were going to stay at, and a young man that worked there made all the arrangements, and it was easy, as it turned out. And then the people that owned the place that we stayed at had kind of a little reception for us and all that stuff. So it was really nice. It was a nice event.
When you guys, when we were all younger, we went camping a lot with all the kids packed in the VW bus. How is it that you had such a keen sense on where to camp so we could get the most possible rain? Were you born with that talent, or is that something you developed over time?
I think it was unique to me, and it was right at the beginning, because I don't remember my mother ever setting foot outside when it was raining, and neither did my father. And I think you guys were all a bunch of weenies, you know, complaining about putting up tents in the rain. Jeez, what was the big deal?
Well, let me ask you, you've kind of carried on that tradition of it with the grandkids. They go to this camp. Do they get real tents and beds, or are they sleeping on pads on the ground with 2 tents in plastic with rope? Has it, you know,
well,
used to, or?
These guys are spoiled rotten. They sleep in tent cabins, you know, on bunk beds and with mattresses. And if it rains, there's cover. You don't have to put the tent up at all. It's already done. And they don't even have to eat our food. They just go down to the dining hall and get to eat it. I guess we could make it tougher for them, but, you know, I guess we could ask the camp to, you know, make it a little more difficult for them. But at the moment, it's pretty easy. They get loaded up with sugar, you know, the usual kind of thing, and run around for a week without any parents bothering them, which is really important.
I remember we used to go to those Mendocino family camps. Those
We did.
were a lot of fun.
They were fun.
Pretty much, we would see you when we got there, and
That was it.
see you once a day maybe, and that was it.
That's pretty much the same of what happens at the Lair of the Bear.
Are the people running around naked though?
No, no, but they were in Mendocino. Yeah, those were the days.
I just remember naked people smoking pot, tie-dye,
Yeah, tie-dye.
and things like that.
There was a lot of that. We, Lynn and I became friends with the guy that ultimately became the caretaker there, a guy by the name of Neil. And he was a piece of work. But the camps were fun, I thought. I liked it. It was a beautiful setting, you know, in the redwoods there, and those cottages were kind of neat, kind of little chalets. The food was pretty good too, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
they were fun.
Yeah,
They were fun. We did a lot of camping actually. We traveled every summer, somewhere
that's right.
differently.
Yeah.
And somehow you always seem to find a hill to park on.
Yeah, well, we had to because the bus wouldn't get started otherwise. Yeah, we had some troubles with that old bus. But you know, after we moved to Colorado, I really found out that I just loved the mountains. And at first, you know, I regretted leaving my friends in Chicago, but after about maybe even less than a year, I just love the mountains, and I like being outdoors, and I haven't lived any further than 3 hours away from mountains ever since.
So you're also big into hiking right now,
Yeah.
and were those infamous death marches really just a ploy to get you trained for hikes that were actually on a trail?
I thought that it was very wimpy of all of you to be concerned about trails. The fact that I have a bad sense of direction doesn't necessarily mean that we'd have to stay on trails. I could get lost on a trail as well as off a trail, and I've got witnesses to prove it.
What are some of the most interesting places you've hiked?
When I was about 16, I think I was 16, took off in the Rockies with some friends, and we stayed out for, I think it was almost a month. We originally were going to stay out for about a week or 10 days, and then one thing led to another, and we hiked a lot. We did some fishing, get trout for dinner, and hitchhiked sometimes. And then we ran out of money in Breckenridge, Colorado, and I had to call my father and have him send us some money. But I liked the Rockies, were fun. And then once we moved to California, hiking in the Sierras has been terrific. And this particular trip, the High Sierra Loop Trail in Yosemite, has got probably the most spectacular views every day of any place I've ever hiked. And of course now I've done it, this will be the 5th time I've done this hike, but we've had really great hikes. Lynne and I have gone various places in the Sierras with the Wolverines. They're all a bunch of fun guys and gals, and it's hard to pinpoint one place, but I would say overall the Rockies and the Sierras have been really great places.
Moving forward just a little bit, you and Lynne volunteered for the Barack Obama campaign. What influenced you to do that?
Well, at the Democratic Convention in 2004, he was a keynote speaker. And I remember watching him, and I said to Lynne, I don't know who the hell that guy is, but I'd vote for him. And when I felt that Hillary was experienced and would be a good president, but I didn't think she could get elected because I thought that the fascistas would come out in droves to defeat her. And I also liked him. I thought he was terrific. And, you know, I think he's got a certain intellectualism and demeanor that is needed in a position of that kind of power. And I think he's shown a remarkable amount of maturity and restraint in using his power. In any event, I had worked in other presidential campaigns in the past, but not as much as this one. And I actually liked doing grunt work. Don't much like telephoning, but I don't mind knocking on doors. That was fun, actually.
So would you really have moved out of the country if another Republican had been elected?
That was a two-step thing. I was convinced that if McCain got elected, he and the other fascists would bring back the draft. And I think that they would have. McCain being in the military and then these guys being such hawks. And if that occurred, I wasn't going to let any of my grandchildren fight a colonialist type of war and die in it or kill other people. And so Lynne and I had thought that if a Republican gets in office and that we ought to invest in some property somewhere in Canada so that they'd have a place to live during the hostilities, and we would probably, there wouldn't have been a question if the draft had come back. As soon as somebody started talking about it, we would have gone. We would have bought something, and maybe we would have gone, maybe we wouldn't have, but we definitely would have had a place up there for the grandchildren.
What do you think the biggest crisis is facing this country and the world today?
I think that the most serious problem we have today is there are elements in U.S. society that are very self-centered and selfish. And this translates into violent foreign policy. It perpetuates almost everything that's difficult in our society. It perpetuates a poor class an economically poor class. It perpetuates the underfunding of education. And Andrew and in the deterioration of our infrastructure. On a worldwide basis, I think the biggest problem is religious intolerance and racism.
And you think that's more of a problem or just a bigger issue than the environment or malaria or hunger and, poverty in other countries, or is it just no way to measure all of those different things amongst each other?
I think they're combined. I think that the wealthy countries don't want to help the poorer countries deal with ecological issues, or their own for that matter, because they're involved with this making more money at the expense of poorer people. And the classic example is this oil thing. The
BP oil spill.
No, I'm not even talking about that. George Bush the First once said, when he invaded Iraq, he said that he would not hesitate to use military power to protect our interests, even if those interests happen to be in other countries. Maybe we need to take a break because of the noise. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Want to
Let's
take
take
it?
a break for a moment. Okay, so here we are. Hopefully we won't be interrupted by too much more noise. You and Lynne have been involved with a lot of volunteering, especially since you've retired.
Yeah.
What are some of the interests that you have in the volunteer arena?
We've been involved with the White Center Food Bank. White Center is a unincorporated portion of King County, and it's one of the poorer sections in King County. And a friend of ours got us started in it, and then we've been working with the food bank for the last, I think 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years now. We go to the food bank to help distribute food once a month. And then last year and this year we've been working on their fundraiser, which is a dinner and auction. And I think Lynne figured out that we probably brought in $6,000 that they wouldn't have had otherwise if we hadn't been involved in it. So,
You also did some volunteer work up behind your house in this park area.
yeah, right.
Where you kind of cleared out some brush
Right.
and things like that. So you've done work in that area as well.
Yeah, there's a little pocket park that we went to the other day around the corner, and that was fun. A neighbor just came by one day and recruited us, and now it's a jungle out there. It's nice. The rest of it has much to do with the Democrats. Lynne has been an officer of the West Seattle Democratic Women, and we've been participants in the 34th District and other Democratic stuff.
You were just doing something this weekend as well, right?
Yeah, the 34th District Democrats had a booth at the West Seattle Festival, and I was at a booth signing up, registering people to vote. No Republicans, I hope.
All of your kids seem to be active volunteers at some point or another, and giving back seems to be a common theme in the family. Even Grandma Lou, as we had discussed, volunteered for many years at the hospital gift shop. Why do you think that is?
You're good people. That would be my answer. Well, I think
There's
that,
a lot of good people that don't volunteer, though.
well, I think for whatever reason you've ended up with understanding that there people that are less privileged than you are, and some people don't do anything about it, and some people do. And a lot of it has to do with time, if you and making time, I guess. And 6 of you do.
So we were talking about volunteering, and it seems that a lot of the people in our family, a lot of the kids volunteer their time. And so why do you think that is? I mean, you had mentioned, well, good people volunteer, or because we're good people, but there are a lot of good people out there that don't volunteer, and we could just as well be just giving money rather than volunteering. So why do you think there seems to be a theme in the family that we're all kind of going out there to physically get involved?
Yeah, I think almost everybody's busy, and you have to make time. I don't know whether just giving money is as gratifying as actually going out there and doing something. Some people can't physically do things, and of course knocking on doors is one of them, or if you feel intimidated by it, you just don't do it. But for me anyway, and I think for all of you, the physical part of doing it is more important, more satisfying. Some people just don't have that kind of an orientation. They may feel that, or maybe they just feel that the money does more work, gets more done.
That actually, the whole extended family has been very involved in volunteering. Barbara and Tom.
Absolutely, the entire extended family, as near as I can tell, has been involved. Like Richard is involved in the fixing up that canyon behind his house, which was a mess before he and that group of people started working on it, and dangerous too. From a fire standpoint.
What are some of your favorite charities?
Well, I have some personal ones. We give money to the American Cancer Society for obvious reasons. We